Seduction places me in line. Read me to a submissive side. A crack of her whip is fine. Latex rubber and light eyes. Cat o' nine tails that breaks me down. Her discipline is so profound. It's got the guts keep me around. Tied up or tied down as long as I am bound. Just as long as I am bound. Place me in your sense of care. I do all for you anywhere. You are the master, I'm the slave. Willing to be your dear frame. Servant to your every whim. Let this fetish love begin. Take control, let this be done. You rule this moment, one may come. I like this thing I am whenever you are near. There is no resistance here. She dominates. I need some pleasure with my pain. She dominates. Abuse me with leather whips and chains. She dominates. Reduce me to a pretty cry. Break the skin and tantalize. I need some pleasure with my pain. She dominates. Whenever you are near, there is no resistance here. She dominates. I need some pleasure with my pain. She dominates. Abuse me with leather whips and chains. She dominates. Reduce me to a bleeding cry. Break the skin and tantalize. I need some pleasure with my pain. She dominates.
You're listening to the Whip Appeal Show, hosted by MistressCandy69 from the BDSM Alive Radio Network. Hello out there in Radio Land. Today is Friday, June 3rd, 2022. And yes, Mistress is back after a couple of, I don't know, last week I had a kind of a really short show. Had a lot of stuff going on that night. Had strange people walking around the backyard. Just the whole night in general was kind of bizarre. That's all I'm going to say. So, it's kind of interesting. I'm going to be living a totally different lifestyle nowadays, which is kind of cool. Mistress is back to doing a lot of stuff that she wasn't doing before. Why? Because I am Mistress Candy and nobody tells me what I can or can't fucking do any fucking longer. How do you like them fucking apples? So, on that note, Mistress is a single entity nowadays and kind of reveling in the newfound quietness of a new, different life that I'm going to be having, which is kind of interesting. It's going to take me a little bit of time to kind of get into the groove of things, but I'm lucky to say that I have great friends and great family, and for all those people out there who are listening to my show tonight, who I've been talking to quite a bit, who kind of know a little insight of what's been going on in my personal life, I must say thank you very, very much to each and every one of you. You know who you are. Because of the fact that Mistress has been going through a very tough time for the past several months. That's all I'm going to say. And, you know, it happens, and, you know, it's kind of interesting. I always get these submissives who email me, like, during the week and asking me questions like, you know, how do I get in the good graces of a mistress? How do I get a mistress to date me? You know, it's kind of interesting. In past shows, we would talk about, you know, MS-type relationships, right? So that's like, you know, mistress-slave or mistress-submissive or master-slave and master-submissive. When you're in a 24/7 BDSM lifestyle relationship as well as a vanilla relationship with your significant other who may be a sub-slave, master, mistress, whatever it is, right? You know, those types of relationships take a lot of work. And myself and other dames have had these types of discussions throughout the years about, you know, mistresses dating their submissives and submissives dating, you know, masters or whatever the hell it is. If you're a female sub and you're into guys, and you would, you know, date and marry a male dom, right? Or a male master. So, you know, these types of relationships take a lot of work. And I always find that, you know, including myself, from all the things I've learned in my 32 years of being a mistress, is that when somebody comes to you and tells you that they're submissive, And they come into the lifestyle for various reasons or kinks or fetishes. But then, as the relationship evolves and you think everything is great and it was just a big, fat, old, hairy lie, like you find out that the sub is not really submissive. They're more of an alpha dominant type person. And then they start dictating or topping from the bottom all too frequently. And, you kind of put up with it because you like this person or you want this person to be in your good graces. But deep inside it's really not a good fit because they just can't seem to behave, I think actually on one of the last shows I had discussed about this sub that I had played with in upstate New York, this young fella named, we'll just call him Noah. That's a good name for him. Like none your business. He was, I thought he was kind of like into sub-frenzy stuff. And then he went from dom to dom. He was like a dom hopper, as they would say. He would go to every play party and try to play with any dominant he could. It was almost like he was a crack addict, like looking for that next hit of crack, And I only know this because I had old retired friends that are like retired crackheads now, so it's kind of funny to even use it in like a terminology like that. But there is subs and submissives who are very new to the lifestyle that really don't know what they are doing, so they kind of get this like sub-frenzy type behavior where they like I said, they're almost like crackheads. And then it gets them into trouble. They become something that they're not just from the beginning. So, I gave this submissive a try, this kid, and I had a lot of problems with him, actually. And then me and this other old mistress friend who, I think she died. I no longer talk to her, but she died to me, basically. She also had this submissive, and she used to call me and ask me, like, oh, God, what did you do with this guy? Because he's pretty difficult. And I said, yeah, well, that's kind of why I gave him to you, because I just wanted to get rid of him, because he was, like, not trainable. And I used to think it was more of his sub-frenzy, but it turns out he really had, like, a mental problem. He was not right in the head, and he wasn't able to sustain a BDSM type relationship because he really didn't understand what went with it, and that he didn't realize that he had to follow like rules and protocols, and he would have, things dictated to him, and he just thought like he would be in the lifestyle for his own needs and fetishes, and not realizing that his sub-frenzy kind of got him in trouble, and he ended up being labeled as a brat at one point. To where this elder dominant woman who I knew from upstate New York had this big, all these big play parties. And she had contacted me because apparently he went to, some of her play parties. And she was like, oh, my God, this sub is, terrible. She's like, who does he belong to? I said, well, he doesn't hell belong to me. I said, he was with so-and-so and so-and-so. And then kind of meandered his way back into the, apex circle, and we kind of laughed about it. And eventually he was banned from, any events or play parties because it's apparently, like we said, he had this mental issue and we couldn't figure it out. And then his family found out about him with the fetish stuff and kind of contacted one of the other dominants. It was pretty funny, because I guess the mom went through his phone and found his information and stuff, so it was kind of comical. Thank God they never contacted me. I'm sure I would have had nothing nice to say about him. But he was very rude to me, this young kid. And then I swore to myself after that I would never, ever train another submissive under the age of 25 ever again. Because I think at the time he was 22 and I think I was 30. So it was kind of interesting, So, but what an interesting thing. So anyway, back to the subject of subs pretending they're not subs. It makes for a very interesting topic. It's kind of interesting. I saw on Twitter somewhere earlier this week about, these younger dames complaining about how these guys were really not submissive. And of course, I want to laugh and tell them, yeah, I know all about that stuff. Believe me, in this life, you're going to find tons of fakes, tons of people that claim they're submissive, but they're really not submissive to you. They're submissive to the lifestyle and what the dominant has to offer them. So it's kind of an interesting, we'll have to make a talk subject for that on another day, because that's a whole show in itself about, subs pretending to be submissive just to get in the lifestyle, just to get in the limelight, like that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Have all that attention drawn onto them, and then, So anyway, and usually that seems to be true with, like, sissies and cross-dressers, I notice. Like, no matter in my whole 32 years of being a dominant, I can honestly say that the most weirdest type of relationships I have ever had was always with a sissy or a cross-dresser. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a way that some of them are so jealous and envious of the mistress that they always feel like they're in competition. And it's kind of funny. Just because a guy wears a dress doesn't mean he has to act like a little drama queen or a little bitch. I mean, guys, you still have dicks between your legs. Yeah, you wear skirts and panties and you try to be as feminine as you can, but we all know if you have a dick between your legs, you're still a fucking man to me. So act like a fucking man and stop, acting like a sniveling little hoary cunt rag bitch. Because every sissy, when I had sissy Tammy living in my house, Tammy, I really thought was the worst one, I have to tell you. Was the biggest drama queen I've ever seen in my life. And I kept telling him, I'm like, listen, you're only a sissy when you're in my house. When you're out in regular public, you're like this little old man. So, like, be the part of a little old man, even when you're in my presence. Because you're just a guy dressed with clothes on, I mean, I don't know, that's how I see it anyway. So it's kind of interesting. So let's see. This is the first week of June, right? I'm going to change subjects here. This is the first week of June, and it is pretty chilly, I think, for the most part. I think I've been more chillier today than I was yesterday. And it's kind of interesting. Mistress is actually staying with some friends. And where they live, I was out in the yard before smoking a cigarette, and I actually saw the biggest possum I have ever seen in my life. Now, mind you, from where I was living, or will be moving out of, I haven't seen any possums over there in like a year and a half. So it's kind of interesting that I come back to this neck of the woods with my friends, and I saw like possums and rabbits and all sorts of animals. So, kind of interesting. Reminds me of where I grew up, actually. So it's kind of nice to see that. It's almost like when you see the rabbit in the spring, it's almost like, a new beginning, something of that nature. Excuse me. So, it's kind of until June. Let's see, there's a lot of fun activities planned for June. Well, let's just say this. Mistress is going to be very active on FetLife. She's going to be very active on Twitter. She's going to be active on all of her social media. Why? Because I was repressed for so long. Now I am no longer repressed, and I am the owner of the BDSM Alive Radio Network, the sole owner of it. So anybody who's listening to the show tonight would like to join my network, please, contact me on social media, and I would be happy to grow my network to fellow dames and masters in a lifestyle that want to talk about BDSM type stuff, or even just if you think you want to have like a kinky, dirty, sexy podcast and you don't know where to put it, you can put it on my network. How's that? So why not help Mistress expand her horizon with her BDSM Alive Radio Network? So, or I would just be happy to continue to do shows by my lonesomeness. No, I don't mind it so much, actually. But I have to take a stop for a minute and thank Blitzkid for allowing me to